All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Very, very excited to be with you today. Also, because there is an important topic, a topic that I wrote about Iran and so forth. We're gonna be talking detail in this StreamYard today, and I'm gonna be providing you my own analysis as to where I see things moving forward. Of course, there's a lot of conversation out there as to whether Iran is going to retaliate or not. We're going to get into the conversation. Of course, I will ask you the questions as we move forward. So before I do this, let me see who is here. Oh, Farhad Razavi, good to see you. Suzanne Jensen, good to see you. Reza Mar, good to see you. Blank Stairs, good to see you. Truth Seeker, good to see you. John Smith in New Zealand, good to see you as always. Let me see who else is here. Marcian, where is I kind of moved forward. Dorsey, good to see you as always. Let me, Osiris, great. Osiris, thank you for buying me coffee earlier. It was like what, 30 minutes ago or so. Thank you so much. Osiris, guys, is the individual who's been buying me coffee for the last almost 3 months every day. So thank you so much, Osiris. Truly appreciate it. Timeline Dunkley, good to see you. Francis Tango, as always. Sam Stone from Scotland, good to see. Oh, not this one here. It's right here. There you are. Good to see you, Sam. And Famida Nadiadi, good to see you, and hello to you. Hamad Sidi, good to see you as always. Rampo Sands 01, good to see you. All right, guys, let's get into it because we got a lot to cover on this one here. Before I'll jump into all this, I want to let you know, remember to join me on Friday the 5th for my interview with my guest, Larry Johnson. We'll be talking very, very interesting topics regarding what's coming in Europe, especially with NATO and so forth. So Larry Johnson, I'm sure you know who Larry Johnson is. So I look forward to that. Second thing is be on the lookout tomorrow for a recorded video that I'm going to be releasing tomorrow. So I'm not going to tell you what the topic is. Just be on the lookout for it. It's recorded and all that. It's going to be released tomorrow morning. So, all right, today's topic, we're going to be talking about whether Iran's promise to respond after its consulate in the Syrian capital Damascus has been attacked by Israel. Now, here's the thing. Some Western media, when they publish the article, they're saying, well, it is allegedly that it was Israel. Well, no, it is confirmed that it was Israel. As a matter of fact, three sources, anonymous sources inside Israel, confirmed that it was Israel that attacked the Iranian embassy or consulate, that is. The consulate is adjacent to the embassy itself. Usually this is a bad, very bad, in the sense that if you think about international law and you think about the diplomatic protocol, an embassy in any country, it's considered the territory of that country. So it's a sovereign entity. Even though an embassy, you cannot attack an embassy because you'll be breaking protocol, you'll be violating international law. And the UN in this case is useless. The international community is useless. Yeah, the Arab world is screaming, well, then, it just talks. It's in action that's going to be where it's going to be seen. Well, with the problem with this attack also is that 7 individuals died, including the top commander of the IRGC. And I'm going to provide you some detail. And his deputy also were killed. The ambassador of Iran in Syria was fine. He wasn't injured into this. So here are the questions we need to ask, because those are legitimate questions. Why now? Why did Israel decide to attack the consulate now? Second question, what was the objective of the attack? You don't conduct an op just for the heck of it, because you feel like it. There is always an objective. So what is the objective of the attack here? Third question, how will Iran respond? Okay? Because we're going to have to think in terms of, I know I could have worded this by saying, will Iran respond? I'm saying, how will Iran respond? In other words, which manner is going to be conducting its retaliation. And the fourth one is, could Iran's response escalate the conflict into a major or an open war? As an analyst, I have to think outside the emotions and all that. I know emotions right now run so high inside Iran, in some Arab Muslim world, whatever, but those are useless. Let's just focus on Iran, But again, emotions aside, you have to think pragmatically as to the significance of this. And this is what I'm saying. Could we be looking at the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei giving the green light? Because the consequences of something like this. Because if you think about it, Russia already issued a statement. I didn't say anything from China yet, but Russia already stated, well, of course, Russia has an interest inside Syria. But we have to think in terms of the escalation of all this. So, all right, quickly, I'm going to do the headlines very, 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 very quick, guys, here. Because it's tied to these aspects of it. So let me share the first picture with you. If I do have a picture, and I think I do. Here's a picture. This is the airport of Haifa in Israel. Well, guess what happened? It was attacked this morning by some unknown group in Iraq that's called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq. It's not unknown. It's just you didn't hear much about it recently. Well, guess what? This morning, of that time over there, because now it's about 8 p.m. in Baghdad. So it was early this morning. So the group announced the targeting of the Israeli Haifa airport in the Palestinian territory with drones. And what I found very interesting also is that the Israeli military announced this morning also that the sirens were sounding to warn of a possible attack in southern Lebanon without giving further details. That just shows you right there. All at the same time, Hezbollah is attacking Israel in the north. So this is where the challenges that's going to be for Israel. So, next one quickly here. This is an earthquake in Taiwan. It's our heart goes to the victims' families because they lost 7 people died into this. Well, it was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that struck Taiwan this morning, the strongest ever for the last 25 years or so. And that's why I said 7 people died and a lot of people were injured into all this. Also, the quake has caused tsunami warning now for southern Japan and the Philippines. However, they say later on the warning was lifted because it was no tsunami into all this. Next one is interesting one here. Indonesia now is officially rejecting the normalization of relations with Israel. So Jakarta just affirmed yesterday its support for the Palestinian people and its rejection to normalizing relations with Israel, and pushing, of course, for the independence of Palestine. And this was the meeting of the foreign minister, Ritna Marsudi, with the Arab leaders and so forth. So now, of course, we know where Indonesia stands on all this one, but that's very, very interesting to just be aware of something like this. And the last thing, which I'm not gonna provide detail because I'm gonna discuss this in detail with my guests on Friday. I just want to give you a heads up on it, is that NATO now it plans to set up funds of about $100 billion to support Ukraine in an anticipation of Trump's return to power. So as I said, I will address this one with my guest, Larry Johnson, on Friday. So make sure to tune in for that one. All right, let's get into our topic. And I'm going to start with the picture of the Ali Khamenei. Don't confuse him with Khomeini. There's Khomeini and Ali Khamenei. Khomeini was the leader of the revolution back in 1979, passed away, of course. And now this is Ali Khamenei. No. And by the way, I give credit to this picture to Majid Asgharipour. That's his image there. So anyway, so the question becomes now, whether Ali Khamenei will issue the green light to retaliate against Israel. Because here is the issue. If Iran doesn't retaliate now, which we said this before regarding when, for example, the nuclear scientists were assassinated inside Iran, the attacks against Soleimani, which Soleimani, by the way, the IRGC commander, he was ordered by the US. It was Donald Trump that ordered that attack. Do you guys remember the year when that took place? Can anybody tell me what year and which location? Where was he taken down or taken out by a drone? That was ordered by the former president, President Trump. Let me see in the chat box if you guys can tell me what year was it and what location. All right, let me see. Iraq on 18, I believe. Okay, it was in Iraq indeed. AC. Yeah, 2020. It was in Iraq. Okay, Soleimani. Let me see. It was in 2020, indeed. To those who answered 2020, Jack Robert, 2020. You're absolutely correct. And it was in Baghdad. Karakulak, indeed, in Baghdad. That's what happened. So my point in this, if now the Ali Khamenei is going to give the green light, what type of retaliation are we looking at? Because now Iran vowed, just yesterday, vowed to take revenge on the airstrike that killed 2 of its top generals. And by the way, the top general, that includes Reza Zahidi. And Reza Zahidi is not your average general either. You know, you have to go through a certain ranking of the IRGC before you get into the possession of, like what General Qasim, former, the late General Soleimani was. So now, let me get the link for. I have a picture for you guys, if I could show it. If it is here, but I doubt it. Okay, it's not here. No. All right, let's move on here, because as I said, I got a lot to cover here. So let's just address, first of all, that the 7 Iranian officials, that included the 2 elite military commanders, were killed in this airstrike on the Iranian consulate complex in Damascus. So now, one thing you have to think about, and let me share a picture here with you guys so you'll see. Where's the building? Right here. So, the one thing that now we're going to have to think in terms of the size of this attack. This is not targeting a scientist one. You're talking about an embassy. You know, when was the last time we experienced, the world, experienced something similar to this? And I'll give you a hint. It was in Europe. Can you guys type in the chat box, where was that? And what was it? To my viewers from Europe, you should know this one. Where was it? Let me see in the chat box. Oh, Belgrade, John Smith, New Zealand. Belgrade. It was in Belgrade. And what happened? What happened with Belgrade? What did NATO do? Indeed, Yugoslavia and China. Why? Because they end up hitting the Chinese embassy, which was a problem. Of course, NATO said, oh, sorry, it was a mistake. No, it wasn't a mistake. You knew what you were doing, because attacking the embassy, I mean, it's clear as daylight. When you see the flag of a sovereign nation on the top of a building, you know that's the embassy. So it's off limit. This is why, for example, when ambassadors, whatever, drive their vehicles in a host country, it says the diplomatic corps, they are not even cited for parking. That's how protected they are diplomatically. So when NATO said, oh, sorry, we didn't know it was the Chinese embassy, that's a lie. Straightforward. The same arguments can be made about what Israel just did to the Iranian embassy, or the consulate, that is, because it was adjacent to the main building. So I'll call it the consulate. Some other sources using the term embassy because it was the embassy complex. So when you see the flag of a country, that's a sovereign territory for the country. So you don't attack it unless it is now a declaration of war. And this is where Iran's going to come in with its decision, how they're going to retaliate. And this is where that division exists right now amongst analysts. There are those who are saying Iran is not going to retaliate. There are those who are saying Iran will retaliate. What do you guys think? Yes or no? Do you think, in your opinion, Iran will retaliate? Yes or no? I know I did a survey for you guys, but nonetheless, I still would like to have your input before. Your input before I share mine here. So, and let me see in the chat box what you guys type in here. Okay, AG, you said yes. Reza Maher, yes, indeed. I am aware of the title of the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei. Yes, he is the one who decides on any decisions like this. As one who wrote a book about Iran, I had to look into the structure of the Iranian government and how it does. So, Bobby Ishak, you said no. Farhad, you say of course. Cam 35, war is coming. That means yes. Masian Dorsey, yes. Bolaji Ayola, you say yes. Karakulak, you say yes, it should. Chanel, you say no. Wong KC, you say yes. Jack Robert, you say yes, but not directly. You mean, I see what you mean, Jack. I see what you mean. John Smith in New Zealand, I don't know. Yeah, and that's the point, guys. I wanted to provide sort of two sides of the argument because that's exactly what's going on. In my opinion, if there will be the attack, which most likely it will be, it won't be directly on the Israeli territory. It will be targeting some entity of sort, some Jewish synagogue somewhere in the world, some group of sort. But again, the magnitude of what took place in Damascus versus what Iran will do, it's no equivalent. Versus hypothetically, and I am talking hypotheticals here. Hypothetical, if you are to look at this, by the way, and I gotta give credit to this one here, to the WANA, West Asia News Agency. I give credit to them. That's their images here that I am using. I'm giving them credit for it. So what do you see in the background of this image? Yeah, you see in this surface-to-air missiles. Those are long-range stuff. Now, what will happen if Iran launched those, and they do have those that can reach Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, whatever. They're not going to target Jerusalem, of course. That just doesn't make sense. But it can target Israeli cities. They will shower. But we all know what it means. You're talking about an open war. Open war that's going to draw in the U.S. Whether we say, because the United States already reached out to Iran saying we had nothing to do. I don't buy that. I don't buy that argument. I know what goes on in the communication behind the scenes. I was in Washington. I was aware of stuff like that. So when the U.S. comes forward and said, we have nothing to do, it's a lie. Let's just call a spade a spade. Come on. But my concern as an analyst, is that if Iran retaliates the way reciprocating the same level of the attack that Israel conducted on the consulate, you are looking at an open war. Open war means what? That means the major powers, mainly Russia and China, will have to get involved. Now, some will say, China won't get involved. I don't think so, because China has to secure the access to energy. And this open war, what is going to do to the energy sources and the targeting Because as you know, in the region of West Asia, Middle East, that's 1/4 of the oil, the global oil supply comes from that part of the world and crosses through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, you think about it. If Iran shuts down the Strait of Hormuz, what's going to happen to the economy, including Iran itself? This is what I'm saying. And I'm not saying, well, cool heads will have to prevail, because now we're looking at what's been taking place for a few years now, when Iran's been attacked in many, many ways. I mean, I'll take back to, for example, the attack that took place in 2020. And when the Israelis were asked about it, about this military strike or targeting, whatever, the answer was, and I quote, this is from the spokesperson for the Israeli military, said, and I quote, "We do not comment on reports in the foreign media," end of quote. However, there are other sources that saying, like, for example, even though I don't buy much into what New York Times says sometimes, Western media, I have doubts, but there are sources, and this one from the New York Times itself, because you give credit where credit is due, simple as that, cited that 4 unnamed Israeli officials sort of acknowledging that it was Israel that conducted the attack. So, and to me, just a blatant violation of international law. Well, if you are not to hold certain countries accountable by any means, that means the international law will not be observed. This is the case of what Israel is doing, because Israel is not above the law and shouldn't be above the law like any other country, including us. We shouldn't be above the law. But on the other hand, this is why we never signed up to the ICJ. So we can't be cherry picking the law. We can't be cherry picking the assignment. We can't, you can't do that. You say you're a democracy and so forth, but you are not adhering to the rules of the law. That just doesn't make any sense. So, and this is where that issue is. And by the way, as I mentioned earlier, the Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahidi, which is a senior commander in the Quds Force of the IRGC. IRGC stands for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Pardon me, along with his deputy, Mohammed Hadi Hajrizani. Yeah, Hajrizami. Were also killed in the attack. But what you need to know about Mohammed Zahidi. Let me see this one here. I'm sorry, Reza Zahidi. Reza Zahidi was born in 1960, believe it or not. And from then he joined, later on, of course, joined the IRGC when he was 19, which was after the 1979 revolution. So soon after, he was after that one. What happened after 1979? Can anybody tell me? A major event that took place in the Middle East. After 1979, what just happened right after that? Let me see what you guys type in here in chat box. Yeah, a major event. The oil cut. No, Franny, good try, but the oil cut was in 1973. This one after 1979. You got it, Irfan, you got it. The Iran-Iraq War, of course, in retaliations to the revolution that toppled the what's his name, the Shah. That was the whole idea of it. So right after that one, when that happened, this is when General Zahidi, sort of got involved into that one. So. And Zahidi rose through the ranks from about 1983 to 1986 till he took command of an important brigade of the IRGC ground forces, and was that brigade was used to break the enemy lines in multiple major operations. This is just a brief understanding about Reza Zaidi. It's just for you to put things in perspective. So now the question is going to become is how sort of what should we expect now? What should we expect? Well, like I said, you look at, for example, Russia. Russia has already joined in the condemnation regarding what Israel did. So it says, and I quote, this is the Russian Foreign Ministry, "We strongly condemn this unacceptable attack against the Iranian consulate mission in Syria." It's because it's a violation of the law, international law, that is. So interesting enough is that during the same time, what happened during the same time is that Hezbollah went ahead and attacked northern Israel. And I'm going to show you a picture. And by the way, this happened yesterday, which is today's time here. The Lebanese Hezbollah announced that it targeted Israeli possessions and a gathering of Israeli soldiers at the border. At the same time, Israel retaliated by shelling towns in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah said that its forces targeted a secret command post behind the Israeli barracks of Barnat, the site of the monk at the border, and the gathering of the soldiers in the vicinity. And I'm going to show you a picture here because you need to see it. And again, this is the recent one that just took place. Full screen for you here, right there. That is the one that just took place in northern Israel. That's where it's taken. And that's the exchange between Hezbollah and the IDF forces and so forth. Now, regarding this condemnation thing, and regarding Hezbollah, by the way, it was a quote that was issued from Lebanon, and it says, and I quote, "Certainly this crime," meaning the attack on the consulate, the Iranian consulate in Damascus, because remember, both Iran and Hezbollah are supporting Syria. What, of course, Hezbollah is a client of, actually both Syria and Hezbollah are clients of Iran. "Certainly this crime will not pass without the enemy receiving punishment and revenge," end of quote. This is what it says. Now, you got Muslim countries like Iraq, Jordan, Oman, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates also condemned the attack. But again, we all know about the Muslim world. They just do a lot of talking. It's not a laughable matter. It's pathetic. That's what I would say. It's pathetic. So, now, as an analyst, I have to think of the consequences if Iran decides to move forward with the retaliation. So, well, because to me already, Israel attacking the consulate, it's a sign of an escalation. Why is this? The reason being because Israel is concerned about the support of Iran, of both groups, the one in Yemen and the one in Lebanon. Okay, that's one of the concerns. Because the funding for these groups comes from Iran. What Iran has developed its own in-house weaponry. In other words, developed their own, despite the sanctions, which I will detail with you in my analysis when I get into it, the ones I disclosed in my own book. So, but this is what Israel was hoping into, to draw in the United States into this fight. Because if the United States gets involved, mark my word, it's going to expand. Russia's going to get involved and China will get involved, but China's not going to get involved openly. Same thing with Russia. They're not going to get openly involved here. There are ways of doing this. It just Iran will have to be prepared for what's going to be happening. And I'm going to share something with you, something I was aware of back in the day when I was in Washington. It used to be a conversation at that time, back within the halls of the Pentagon. And all this was in reaction to the idea of what will happen if Iran develop nuclear weapons. Okay, and that was during the time when the negotiations were taking place between P5+1, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany, But at the same time, the Pentagon was working on a plan. With that plan, and it's not classified, I can't disclose this because it's in a public record if you know where to look for it. So I'm sure I'll be getting some email from Washington. Well, Mr. O, you can't talk. I was like, oh, hold on a second. It's in public domain. So it was classified at the time. Well, one of them has to do with, just to show you how things works out in the Pentagon when we draw in a plan to attack a country, for example. Now, you have like what we call the menu. Yeah, like when you go to a restaurant, there is a menu. Well, at the Pentagon, there is a menu also for attacking. And the menu will include options 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Guess what was on the first on the menu? It was a carpet bombing. That was the whole scenario for how you're going to deal with Iran is carpet bombing, which means you flatten everything. Well, how are you going to flatten that with? Certainly you will flatten it with missiles and so forth if the country doesn't have anti-missile systems. Well, we all know Iran acquired the S-300 and he's going to be acquiring S-400 from Russia, the S-300 missile systems. And so those are deadly accurate. So Iran has also developed its own. And the other aspect is you can use some sort of developed. I won't go as far as it's not a strategic nuclear weapons, of course, that won't work for that. But tactical nukes could be applied to certain conditions. That was my point into highlighting to you. One of the things that Iran will have to think about once the U.S. gets involved is because if the U.S. gets involved, that means U.S. interests in the West Asia, Middle East will become a legitimate target. This is what I'm saying as far as the thinking that could be going. And as an analyst, I have to think in those terms. So, and the other reason for why Israel is doing this at this time is because they want to bait. They want to bait Iran into responding forcefully, then pulling the U.S. into it. How? Because Israel can go and target some other, and I will say it because truth matters. I will go as far as Israel attacking some U.S. location, some base or something, and blame it on Iran. You all remember what happened with USS Liberty. Can anybody type in the chat box what happened with USS Liberty if you know the history of it? So, and this is why you have some analysts in Washington saying, "Oh, we are convinced that Iran will not respond." I don't think so. There is a limit to how much you can push. Because also Iran will have to think in terms of if something like this, we're talking about violating international law by targeting an embassy, what's next? Iran already been put under the spotlight for when it said it's gonna take revenge for taking out Qasem Soleimani. And what happened? Did we ever hear anything about that? No. So becomes what? Is Iran just barking without action? It's worth asking the question. YT, you put Israel attacked USS Liberty. That is correct. To those who answered this similar way. Actually, most of you guys did. U.S. covered up the crime. That is correct. 1159. That is correct. It went hush-hush here in the U.S. because we didn't want to say anything about it. So you're absolutely correct. And this is what I'm talking about. The idea of how Iran's going to now retaliate to this. There are ways of dealing with all this. There are ways of dealing with this. For example, because what happened after 1979? After 1979, when Ali Khomeini returned back to Iran, it was Qasem Soleimani that drew the plan and strategy to strengthen Iran's network inside West Asia. He is the one credited with strengthening Iran's position through groups. This is one of the things that Iran can do. It can loosen up the groups that are under the control of the IRGC, be they in Iraq, Iran, and some other locations. And what they're going to do? is targets American forces in the region. And if you know anything about us fighting guerrilla warfare, is we look what happened in Fallujah. I went there, and I went after I was deployed at the time to Afghanistan, but I went over. I said to myself, well, I can see why we won't be able to defeat this, because you won't win in a guerrilla warfare. Those are it's a different ball game altogether. Now, the other thing is also, and this is, we're talking about just some groups that are not well established, the likes of Hezbollah, the likes of the ones in Yemen. Because what will happen, for example, if the green light is given to Hezbollah, they're going to go ahead and start dealing with Israel in the north. The north of Israel is already deserted. And this is where I see the problems that's going to be getting worse for Israel. So, however, because we can't deny the reality of it, as of now, without the retaliation of Iran, as of now, Israel is in a much better position. It's in a so-called win-win situation. Why? Because Tel Aviv understands that Iran does not want to escalate and get dragged into not a war against just Israel, in a regional conflict. That is what's going to be happening. Why? Because Iran's asset and personnel in Syria will be attacked, which will be sort of it's not going to bode well for Syria. And Iran has an interest in ensuring that Syria is stable, politically, that is. And if Iran retaliate, then that gives now the justification for Israel to say, oh, we are now in a major war. This is where I see the challenges that lie into this. But on the other hand, I'm going to go with the other side of the argument. And the other side of the argument, that for Iran, it is now or never. Because now he moved beyond just targeting individuals. We're talking about an embassy. And one question we need to ask, because you can't forget this one, is how did Israel knew that the head of the IRGC was there? Somebody must slipped the information into Israel. So intelligence also had to play a role into this. The same argument I made back then when the 2 nuclear scientists inside Iran were targeted. That means the failure of the intelligence services inside Iran. Even though Iran is wired, but to me it just shows a flaw. And that's one of the arguments that I will be making in terms of how Iran is going to move forward. What if we are to think, and again, I'm going to base this on what I discussed, guys, in this book right here. If you ever get a chance to read it, I do have a link, by the way, there are some snippets about the book. If you can look it up later on, it gives you a brief description of each chapter, and you can I posted in the chat box for you guys. You can look it up later on. So what it's going to be in this case? In this case, you're going to be looking at Iran using its own developed military capabilities. And as I argued, Iran is communicating to the West that it has the capability and know-how to produce some advanced systems through various means, including reverse engineering. It's very, very important to understand, because here is the thing, which a lot of people do not know. When I say people, I'm referring to the ones in the West. What they do not know is that, at least when I did the research for the book, is that the production of the anti-tank wire guided, it's called the USTO-2W missiles. Where did Hezbollah got those? Back in 2006. That's how they end up driving Israel out of Lebanon. It was Iran that provided that through Syria. So, and it shows the ability of Iran, despite the sanctions, that they were able to do that. The similar arguments I've made back then is that Iran produced the unmanned aerial vehicle, UAVs that is, okay? And this allowed Iran to perfect that technology. Again, despite the sanctions, all this. And that's why I am thinking in terms of what Iran's capability that's going to have to use if it decided to move forward with the retaliation. And this is why, for just the UAVs, has put Iran ahead of any other country, except now to a degree Turkey. But Turkey is wishy-washy. You know how Turkey is. So Iran of any other regional countries in the region, except, of course, the two, Israel and Turkey, to a degree. So, and you think about the two main drones that I am very familiar that Iran developed. One of them is called Arad, which is an Arabic word for thunder. Okay. And the second one is called Nazir. To those who speak Farsi, you will know what I'm referring to here, which is an Arabic for harbinger. Iran developed those. So, and because these ones will changed already the balance of power. This is why Israel and the US couldn't attack the nuclear facilities inside Iran. Yeah, Israel is doing this outside to win, to woo the US as a bait for Iran, but also to pull the US into this, turning it into a conflict. Because Israel now is in a bad position because it's isolated. And of course, do you all remember, and I'm going to juggle your memory here, do you all remember what happened with the downing of the American Scan Eagle? Can anybody tell me what year did this happen? American Scan Eagle, which is basically a short-range unmanned aircraft. What year it was down? Yeah, the downing of this American Scan Eagle. And by whom? Let me see in the chat box, because I like to just trigger your memory here. Oh, no worries, Francis Tango. No, RQF 170. RQ, no. Oh, it was by Iran. What year? Because that marked a major change. No. 20. Go back. Go way back. Go back a few years, or even a decade plus. No, it was 2012. 2012. That's when Iran downed. How did they down that? They developed the capacity to down that one. And what did Iran do when they got that one? They provided Russia with a copy of the drone. And that's how they end up producing high caliber UAVs. And again, this is where I use history for me. I use history as my guide to reference how Iran was able to influence and disrupt, if I may use the term, any policy of the United States tries to implement in the region. This is why we end up being, now it's the US presence in West Asia. We still have forces there, whatever, but it's irrelevant, if I may use the term. One does not have to look far to realize how Iran uses its agents formally or currently, be they in Iraq, like when you think about Iraq back then, what do you think about? The Mahdi army back in 2003, or you think about Lebanon, which group do you think about? Hezbollah in 2006, that was able to drive Israel out. Or you think about Yemen, against the Yemeni government, which was at that time supported by the Saudis, and even inside Palestine, including Hamas, just to make a point. And this is where I see the changes that's going to have now to take place within Iran. Now, to those who argued at that time, well, if we do this and do that, we're going to create demonstrations inside Iran to change the regime and destabilize. No, it is not going to work. That democracy slogan ain't going to work in Iran. Some sirens going on. I don't know what's going on. Now, are we being attacked? Joking aside. And this is why I argued. Anyone who's thinking that Ali Khamenei, the current supreme leader, will give up his power for the sake of global assimilation or integration or even this so-called democracy in whatever form or shape is mistaken or is hallucinating. That's why it just doesn't make any sense. It just does not make any sense. And the argument now that I make is that this attack on the embassy, Iranian embassy or consulate, that is, it's really contributing now to the changes of the security architecture in the region, the whole region. Because now you start to think, what if Israel is able to violate international law this way? Which country is going to be next? Ireland? Because Ireland now is saying, we don't care about Israel. They want to cut off the boycotting all the products and cut off the relationships with diplomatic ties with Israel. Indonesia, because Indonesia is saying, well, I'm not going to normalize. Countries, other Arab countries that's saying, forget about it. But also you have to think about how this now, something like this could push Iran and Russia even closer in their partnership, because both of them have an interest into dealing with this both ways. And given the US-Russia tensions over like what happened with the Ukraine and so forth, this will pave the way now for Iran and Russia to really move rapidly into more inclusive partnership. They're already doing this, with China added to the mix into this one. But this one also stems from some key elements that you need to be aware of. One is Iran would like to possess advanced missile systems beside the domestically produced ones. Why? To project strength in the case Israel decided to attack Iran's nuclear facility. So far, Israel's not going to do this. It's not going to go all the way. Yeah, I was surprised for the attack of the embassy, because to me, embassy is an international territory that belongs to the country that is its flag is being raised over there. And two, Russia would prove to the West that it still could tilt the political balance of power and changing the geopolitical equation in West Asia. This is why they went ahead. Russia was quick to go ahead and condemn all this one here. And again, it's going to become relevant now for Iran to do something, accept the consequences of it. They're going to have to think very hard before. And again, I'm not someone who reacts emotionally, especially with something like this, because you're talking about the long-term consequences. It's the same thing Ukraine did. Look where Ukraine is right now. And the same thing Israel did when they went ahead and starting on October 7th. Because Israel is not going back to what it was. It's over. And all this, of course, for Iran came within those dynamics during the talks between the P5+1, as I mentioned at that time. But they're going to move forward with what they need to do. Suffice it to say for now, that Iran's missile technology, for instance, as part of its domestic military production, some sort of raised legitimate concerns and questions among countries in the region, mainly Israel. Arab countries, they'll be fine, especially after Saudi Arabia and Iran, thanks to China, brokered the deal between the two. So they don't have to worry about it. But the only country that's going to be concerned now is Israel. Why? Because those missiles are within reach to any, I would say, any location inside Israel. Yeah, those types of missiles. These are long range ones. And this is why now it's going to become very upon the Iranians now what they're going to do, what the Iranian leadership, mainly Ali Khamenei is the supreme leader because he's also the head of the IRGC and the military in general. They're going to have to decide what they're going to do, including Raisi, what he's going to do. And all of them, they provide their recommendations. Of course, they have their own National Security Council. They're going to provide recommendations and they're going to move forward with that. Now, one thing I know for a fact, that if Iran makes that decision, it won't be about launching missiles inside Israel. That will be suicide. I don't see them doing that. What I do see them doing that is targeting. It might be even soft targets, but soft targets, or the Iranians will be okay with that. But if it is soft targets, then Israel is gonna think in terms of, they're not gonna respond, and this is why it's a win-win for Israel right now. It could change, and it could change for one reason, and that reason is, in my analysis, is that the Iran's possession of a short, medium, and a long-range missiles. They named, I don't know if those of you guys who are familiar with this type of missiles that Iran has. One of them called Shahab, which is Shahab. It's an Arabic word for a meteor. Like when you hear meteor shower, it's saying that's the Shahab. So, and that one, and I did the research on it, it can reach Tel Aviv. No questions asked. The Iron Dome, yeah, it can intercept here and there, but it only takes one to slip through. So, and this is why even after the Israel also will have to think twice about really escalating this. But for now, Israel did this to see if it can bait Iran and woo the US into. Because, mark my word, if there is a major conflict, we are getting in one way or another. Because we will have no choice. The US government has no choice. Yeah, I'm telling you this. This might shock you. The US government has no choice. The Jewish lobby is very strong here. And this is where, and of course, Russia is going to react, and other entities going to react, and Iran can provide those advanced systems to the groups inside West Asia, and you're going to see Israel will be showered from all directions. Yeah. I just don't understand the rationale, and this is why I asked the question: what was the objective of it? Of course, as I said, is a bait for Iran, but again, the rationality. Any leader, doesn't matter, political or military, you always have to think strategically as to what the consequences of an action is or could be. Otherwise, you are taking a country into the wrong direction, and that's not going to bode well. So, and this is where the challenge that I see moving forward is that how Iran's going to react. And again, I am referring back to what was said, and I still remember the statement: we will take revenge for the death of Qasem Soleimani. What happened? I don't even know how Trump got involved into ordering such an attack, knowing that it's gonna. And this is why they started attacking U.S. forces in Iraq. So, I feel uncomfortable. I'll say it this way: I feel uncomfortable. Of course, each country has to defend itself. When you're targeting your citizens, well, that's, you're going to have to. Otherwise, that government is going to become weak in the eyes of its citizens. And this is where I see the problem. And the problem, the other big problem that I see, given the tensions that is going on right now, when I see tensions, not just in that part of the world, elsewhere, the Taiwan Strait, the Ukraine conflict, Africa, all this, you combine all this, and Middle East has always, or West Asia has always been the hot spot. That retaliation from Iran against Israel is going to move into an open war. Open war is going to draw into a regional. Regional is going to lead into a world war. Because some countries going to say, well, now or never. And also you have to consider the changes on the geopolitical landscape. Sometimes war, you all remember how World War II ended and what just happened after World War II. So that just, those are legitimate questions and concerns we have to take into consideration when thinking of a magnitude of something like this, a conflict that can go far, far bigger. I mean, don't get me wrong. There will be no winner, but it will be complete destruction on both ends, Israel and Iran. So it's not an easy position, and I truly understand where things are. It just, I have to also think pragmatically, not emotionally. I understand if I were a head of state, and my citizens get targeted to the point of being killed, well, what am I going to do? Of course I'm going to have to retaliate, but I'm going to have to think hard, because I'm putting the faith of a nation, the welfare of a nation. You look at what comedian Zelensky did. Ukraine is gone because he couldn't think rationally. And in the case of, and one thing I've learned when I did the research about when I wrote the Iran book, I've learned, believe it or not, this might surprise you. The government in Iran, it's pragmatic. They're very pragmatic. They're not reactionary like us. They're very pragmatic. They're restrained. I know it's interpreted in the week as weakness. The same thing like what Russia is doing with Ukraine. I mean, come on, you all know Russia would have flattened Ukraine if it wants to, but that's not how things are done. So, and this is where I see that challenge that's coming forward. So I am hoping something different. I wanted to do this for you guys, to provide you a different alternative, different thinking, because we can't be just thinking emotional. We're going to have to react, because you have to think of long-term consequences. And sometimes you have to put the welfare of a nation before any, but it has to be communicated with the population. On the other hand, if nothing is done, no, that's a big problem. It is a big problem if nothing is done. So, and this is where I see the challenge that Iran is going to be facing. I don't know what's going to be happening. I'm going to keep my eyes open. Just how usually when I read stuff, that's what I will go through. It's I get my understanding of where things could go, and that's where the analysis comes in. Just to think in terms of again, humanity. We all saw what's going on in Gaza and all that stuff. As a matter of fact, IMF or World Bank yesterday released the estimates. There's about $18.3 billion in destruction. And at the same time, come on, where do you draw the line? No country should be above the law. I don't care who you are. So. Anyway, guys, I'm going to answer a few questions just to remind you once again. Thank you all for your kind support. I'm going to just quickly, if you allow me, give quick shout out to Hosiris Great, of course, TC Kwan, as always. You guys avid supporters. Zhuge Liang as a supporter. Just many of you guys. Boone and just so many of you, and I'm very, very, very thankful and grateful. But I do want to give a shout out to a new member on the YouTube channel. Yeah, that's where it is. So, and this person is Jeremiah Morrison. Thank you for becoming a new supporter, or you rejoined. And also Ms. April, thank you for becoming a member again. And Emerson Bangora, I want to say thank you to these individuals. And also on Buy Me Coffee, I want to Open it. And thank you for your donations for the Asia trip. Of course, Asia trip still on, by the way. I just submitted the paper because you're going to go through the process and all that. And there is no definite date as to when I'm going. And I won't disclose that stuff anyway. That's security reasons. That's how I roll. I don't disclose when I'm going. I don't disclose when, whatever. You will find out when I am in Asia. That's the way I do it. So, for the supporters, also on the Buy Me Coffee, Osiris, once again, B Tam, thank you so much. Ramzi Abdurrahman, much appreciate you, man. Bought me about 10 cups of coffees. Thank you so much. Trihono Sugdani, thank you so much for your support. Kelly Z, thank you so much for your continued support. To all of you guys, I'm very, very grateful. So, and if you want to support the channel, I'm gonna put the link for you here and this right there. So thank you so much. So let me answer some questions from you guys. I'll answer 2 or 3. And Yuri Gamin, a new member. Thank you so much for becoming a new member. Truly appreciate your support. So, all right, let's first question that shows up right here in front of me. Timeline Dunkley. Question: does Israel have an embassy in other countries? If so, yes, it does have embassies, of course. The ones that recognize Israel as a state. Not all of them do. Yeah, but if Iran does this, then that becomes, this is where you show, I may even use the term diplomatic maturity. But again, of course, targeting an embassy, that's a violation of international law. Because now we're going to find out whether the UN is going to step in. Because this falls under the UN mandate also. Embassies and all that stuff. It's international law. International law is under some conventions that is under the UN. So, but if Iran does it, it's going to do some other soft targets. So that's the way I see it going that direction. Solo Wing question: will Iran unleash? Yeah, most likely. But again, Iran doesn't want to invite more tensions, more trouble, more because remember, Iran is still under sanctions. Iran is not operating at full capacity. But if they do that, they're going to have to be very specific about the targets. And again, Israel will retaliate, Iran will retaliate, and you know where this is going to lead to. So, by no means. Of course, what could happen later, Israel will say, yeah, we'll pay compensation for the damage and all that. But that's not about that, because in international relations, optics matters. The fact that you attacked an embassy, it says a lot. YA, if Iran goes to war, will Russia back them up? How close is the Russia government to the Israelis? No, they're not close. They're not close. As a matter of fact, Israel has warned Israel not to attack certain interests inside Syria that belongs to Iran, because there's also the interest of Russia inside Syria. David King, China did long-term with Iran. If U.S. West attack, would China help Iran? I do see that. I do see that because, especially in the energy, Iran provides massive amounts of energy to China. I'm sorry. Russia also provide a massive amount of energy to China. Saudi Arabia, but for Iran, it's specific. It's specific. One question from Hong Ruan. Hi, Dr. O. This question is on George Galloway's show right now. Will the Al-Shifa hospital massacre and master Western arm to Israel? Yes. Yeah, it was, because it was a massive destruction. Now, again, hospitals are also off limits. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. You can't be breaking this international law willy-nilly and nothing happens. But again, I am going to have to say, well, where is the Arab world? Yeah, it's useless. Jack Robert, UN has seen Israel break Vienna Conventions, bombing embassy and conventions against Palestine. The US, UK, and less so France are not doing anything. Can this break the UN? Well, the UN is toothless. The UN is toothless, in my opinion. And again, that's me speaking. Get rid of the UN. Yeah, get rid of it. Because what it's doing? Nothing. Yeah, we're going to provide humanitarian aid. Where is it? You couldn't even get into providing humanitarian aid in Gaza. So where is your... Yeah, it's toothless. So if you are toothless, just get rid of it. And especially now that the world is moving into multipolarity, you're going to be seeing the global south. Maybe the global south can create its own UN and invite the UK if they want to. But the UK and US and all that won't have a say into that. It will be the collective global south. That's the way I see it. Get rid of the UN. It's useless. Yeah, because to me, when you start targeting embassies, schools, hospitals, nursing home where the elderly, that's blatant violation, and you should be punished for it. And if it were up to me, and again, it's not about emotions here, but if things keeps repeated over and over and over, it's like corruption, But for corruption, there is no just one time. No. You get involved in corruption, you know what the punishment ought to be on a Sunday after church. No ifs and buts. That's it. That's the way it ought to be. So yeah. All right, guys, I am going to Atin Wu. You Dr. David, you are too good a person, such political leader as Zelensky, and so are not serving their people. They are just looking for. Yeah, he's not even qualified for the position. It takes more than just I don't know, just political career, whatever. You really have to have an in-depth understanding of how to read the geopolitical landscape. That's one. Second, you have to be a selfish person. You don't put your interest first before your people. You people comes first. That's how it's supposed to be. Because it's not about your legacy. It's not about... You take care of your people. That's how you will be remembered. And that's why I always say, I look at it, guys, even with you guys supporting the channel or whatever. You know what I say to myself? And I want you to know. I'll pay it forward, because that's how it ought to be. You don't just take, you give. And sadly, in our society here, it's all about taking. And I don't believe in that. So anyway, guys, I hope to see you on Friday. Remember, for my I should have had the link for you. Here, hold on a second, guys. I'm gonna go get you the link, and you have it. Then you can join me on Friday for my conversation with Larry Johnson. And I'll post it for you guys later on in the community. So here is the link to the upcoming interview with Larry Johnson on Friday the 5th. Also, be on the lookout tomorrow for my video. Don't miss that out. And please, when you're done with this, please hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, subscribe if this is your first time here. As always, guys, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time. Bye-bye.